Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. A late surge helping the Nifty reconquer 18,000. The Sensex gains over 450 points. Both the indices gain over 2.5% this week, making it the biggest weekly gain in 9 months. Amazon beat street estimates in the first quarter amidst layoffs. Revenue up 9%, largely driven by growth in its cloud and advertising unit. But no mention of India in the earnings report for the first time in 10 years. Sony posts a record annual profit helped by its chip division and sales of its flagship PlayStation consoles. On the other hand, Intel reports a record quarterly loss of nearly $3 billion as sales declined for the fifth straight quarter. 15 months after it was notified, the government is yet to approve the eligible candidates for the semiconductor PLI scheme. Government sources say the process is in advanced stages but stopped short of indicating a timeline. Vedanta has committed 1.5 lakh crore rupees but remains silent on finalizing deals on tech transfer with global chip makers. Ola CEO says he wants to end the ICE age for scooters and have only electric scooters on Indian roads by 2025. Also says Ola is ready for a subsidy-free future but asks the government to pull back subsidies gradually. That's an exclusive. German engineering major Siemens looks to double down on India's railway sector. President and CEO Roland Busch tells CNBC-TV18 the company will continue to bid aggressively for tenders, adding the company wants to use India as a base for global exports. That's an exclusive. Solicitor General tells the Supreme Court an FIR against Wrestling Federation Chief Brij Bhushan Singh will be filed today. The Supreme Court directs for protection to a minor girl who is among multiple wrestlers to accuse Singh of sexual harassment. Support pours in for the wrestlers who continue to protest on the streets of Delhi, with Olympic champion Neeraj Chopra joining them in support. Well, let's start with the day's trading action. The Nifty is back above the 18,000 mark after a late rally on Friday. The Sensex gained over 450 points. Both indices gaining more than 2.5% this week, making it the biggest weekly gain in 9 months. In fact, April has been a good month for companies. The combined market cap of BSE-listed firms rose by 20 lakh crore rupees in the last 1 month. Prashant is standing by to wrap up the market for us. Prashant, strong close to the week.
Well, the market was trading between 9:15 and 3, but I dare say the real action started at 3 p.m. Between 3 and 3:30 p.m. today, the Nifty added 100 points and the Bank Nifty added 300 points. It was a bazooka move and just kept going. We're almost at 18,100 on the Nifty. Bank Nifty also doing very well. Mid-caps and small-cap indices, well, they participated through the course of the day in a very healthy way. I'll get to stocks in a bit. PSU banks, IT and energy are three areas where maximum gainers came through. And Reliance and ITC were the big contributors to the Nifty. Between them, a hefty chunk. Nestle, Wipro, L&T, HDFC Life and Apollo Hospitals are some of the others which did quite well. It's the breadth of the broader market moves, mid-caps, small caps, which moved based on earnings, some just sort of catching momentum on the way up. That's been truly impressive, a feature of this market over the last 5 sessions. Names like Zomato, PI Industries, Indus Tower, Nykaa, Z, Loris, tire companies like CNBC-TV18, EIH Hotels, Stovecraft, and so on and so forth. I mean, a plethora of gainers that we had. There were some losers as well. News-related, Godrej Consumer, Raymond lost. Shriram Finance and CSB Bank were lower on earnings, and a few others as well. It's a melt-up. I mean, I think there is no other way to describe it. In very, very strong hands, we find ourselves. It's a 3-day long weekend. We come back next week on Tuesday, and then Wednesday we got the Fed decision, which I think is going to be the big cue. Can that interrupt this rally? I think we'll only be wiser on Thursday morning once we hear from the Fed and what they've done. But I think Tuesday morning we come back with and deal with an accumulated set of earnings which we would have gotten, and of course global cues as well. Back to you.
All right, Prashant, many thanks. Yes, in fact, it is going to be another long weekend for the markets. Now, crude oil prices heading for a second weekly decline amidst uncertainty over demand and potential rate hikes from global central banks. US GDP slowing to just over 1% in the first quarter compared with expectations of a 2% growth rate, but jobless claims also dropped, indicating that the labor market remains strong. Brent crude remaining below the $80 mark. Cryptocurrencies continue to be volatile, Bitcoin inching higher, touching $30,000. In a note, Standard Chartered had predicted that crypto winter could be over and that Bitcoin could hit $100,000 by the end of 2024. On to global earnings. Tech giant Amazon reported a strong set of numbers in the March quarter. This amidst layoffs. Revenue up 9% to $127 billion. This was largely driven by the growth in its cloud business and advertising unit. Amazon Web Services revenue rose about 16% this quarter, but this is a deceleration from the previous quarter. However, the company has not mentioned its India business in its earnings report for the first time in 10 years. CNBC's Contessa Brewer joins us now to decode those numbers. Contessa.
It's interesting here because we saw those shares really pop once the earnings came out. Amazon's cloud results pushing the company's overall revenues sky high at $21.35 billion. AWS not only beat analysts' expectations, or as Raymond James analysts put it on our air, better than feared, but made up 17% of overall revenues. And CEO Andy Jassy predicted there's more growth ahead in spite of cautious spending by AWS customers. That might be one reason why we're seeing those shares dropping lower in the extended trade. Some element here of fear coming into this, what's coming down the pike in terms of recession. Amazon showed 23% growth in advertising, far better than expected. Andy Jassy said that was largely due to ongoing machine learning investments that help customers see relevant information when they engage with Amazon, which in turn delivers unusually strong results for the brands. Also, Amazon announced it is ending its efforts around Halo. That's the wearables division. This was really part of Amazon's overall efforts to rein in costs and find efficiencies. It has been top of mind. We know that there are layoffs of 27,000 workers that have been announced. The company has paused construction on the second headquarters in the state of Virginia. This is part of the reason why it came through with earnings, profit that were far better than expected. Shares popped up and extended trading by a bit.
As expected, customers continue to evaluate ways to optimize their cloud spending in response to these tough economic conditions in the first quarter. And we are seeing these optimizations continue into the second quarter, with April revenue growth rates about 500 basis points lower than what we saw in Q1.
Well, that's Amazon's global CFO on their earnings. Meanwhile, Japanese tech giant Sony reporting a record annual operating revenue, largely driven by its semiconductor division, and a jump in its PlayStation 5 sales, revenue jumping 35% to nearly $22 billion. The company sold over 19 million PlayStation 5 consoles this financial year, beating its own forecast of 18 million. Well, Intel posting its largest ever quarterly loss of nearly $3 billion in the March quarter. Revenue declined 36% year-on-year to over $11 billion. Interestingly, the stock was up 2% as the loss per share was slightly better than what Wall Street was expecting. Now, 15 months after notifying the semiconductor PLI scheme, the government is yet to finalize the candidates. We learned from sources that the government is ensuring that eligible candidates are technically proficient, further adding that the approvals may be granted soon. We also spoke with Vedanta, which has applied for the scheme along with Foxconn. Vedanta said it is confident of securing approvals to set up a semiconductor plant in Gujarat. Ashmit joins us now with the details. Ashmit, it's been a long wait. Of course, Vedanta, Foxconn, that's the only shortlisted consortium that has been mentioned by the government as being possibly eligible. What's going on here?
Well, you're right on that count. December 2021 is when we had the notification come out for the 76,000 crore rupee semiconductor scheme. It's been over 15 months since then, but yet not much clarity in terms of which are the candidates which stand to get approval. Now, we reached out to highly placed sources within the government. What they tell us is that there is a reason behind the government not prescribing a very clear timeline. What the government sources indicate is that the government is allowing itself the luxury of this not prescribing a timeline, essentially because it wants to ensure that the candidates that are finally go through are technically proficient. Not just that, they also went on to say that the government is in advanced stages of the process of grant of approval, so expect it soon is what they tell us, again without prescribing a timeline. Towards that end, government sources also indicated that as far as the MOU is concerned with the United States, that will also yield some very visible gains in terms of the supply chain components, the supply chain moving here to India. That's, of course, as far as the government is concerned. Now, amongst the leading candidates, of course, we reached out to Vedanta, Foxconn as well. Now, what they tell us is that they're confident of securing the government's nod soon, and that subject to the government approval, they could even begin construction as early as by the end of 2023. Not just that, they reaffirmed their commitment of 1.5 crore rupees as far as their Gujarat fabrication facility is concerned, said that this will have a capacity of 40,000 wafers, that production is likely to begin in 2027, that it will create around 80,000 to 1 lakh jobs. However, there is a big question mark here. Vedanta Foxconn is heavily reliant on its conversations, its talks with European chipmaker ST Microelectronics. And while we asked them what the status of this conversation is in terms of technology transfer agreement, there was no clarity emerging from Vedanta. There's a big question mark on that. So clearly all eyes on Vedanta Foxconn's answers in terms of technical preparedness, and of course answers, all eyes on the government as well for granting its nod for this semiconductor scheme worth 76,000 crores.
All right, Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. Now, subsidies to EV players may continue, but only if the FAME scheme is left unutilized, is left with unused funds. After repeated requests to the government from auto industry bodies to extend the FAME scheme, government sources indicate that the government may consider an extension only if there is surplus in the allotted funds at the end of the fiscal. Remember, the corpus is of 10,000 crores. Bhavish Aggarwal, the CEO of Ola, India's top two-wheeler maker, has set himself an ambitious target to make all scooters in India electric by 2025. In an exclusive interview with me, Aggarwal said, and I quote, "I'm saying this on the record, that by the end of 2025, we can make all two-wheelers in India electric." He is, of course, talking about scooters. It's a little aggressive, but that is what we are striving for. And to make that happen, we need to build the right products at the right cost structures and to bring supply chains to India, end of quote. Now, just for context, 55 lakh scooters were sold in India last fiscal. E-scooters account for about 13%. The Ola founder also feels the industry will not require subsidies beyond a certain point, but cautions that subsidies should not go away completely but should taper gradually. He told me, and I quote, "Early last year, we started working towards making sure that our cost structure is ready for a non-subsidy regime. And so today, we are almost there," end of quote. Aggarwal also told me that Ola's e-scooter portfolio will be complete by the 15th of August 2023. That's this year. He says the company plans to launch another 3 to 5 products in the next 2 quarters. I also asked him on some of the issues related to senior level exits. Bhavish said, and I quote, "As we've gotten bigger, some people might have found it a little different from what their other experiences would have been, and we have learned again from that what kind of people work better for us. Today, we have the best talent in the world." On the issue of whether Ola is actually looking at launching a car, he said they are serious about the prospects. He also said that they hope to launch an electric car by 2025. You can read more about our exclusive interview with Bhavish Aggarwal on our website, CNBC-TV18.com. And sticking with news from Motown, Bajaj Auto inaugurated its first Chetak Experience Centre in Delhi's Connaught Place. Speaking to CNBC-TV18, Bajaj Auto's Executive Director Rakesh Sharma said the company feels bad about the fact that it entered the Delhi market late, citing supply chain issues that hit production and slowed expansion. Listen in.
We're also a little bit apologetic about coming to Delhi so late. But really, there are 2 issues. One is that, as you know, and we've been quite public about it, that we had some glitches in our supply chain side, because of which we were not being able to get enough production, and because of which we were a little bit slow on expanding our network. We have not had any issues or any sort of, if you're asking, show cause notice from the government of India.
Well, that's Bajaj Auto on their plans for the Chetak e-scooter. Shares of Raymond dropping in today's trade after the company announced the sale of its FMCG business and a demerger of its consumer care segment. Shilpa caught up with Gautam Hari Singhania, the chairman and managing director, and Amit Aggarwal, the chief financial officer of Raymond, on the rationale behind the demerger.
Net debt free is something the market has always asked us when you will be. We had committed that we will be net debt free by March 25. I always said subtly that we will, with a little bit of luck, do it earlier. And we're doing it 2 years earlier than our commitment. So I think this all will create exponential shareholder value. Now you'll have totally 2 different businesses.
As far as the demerger is concerned, the RCCL will get the cash, and we have at the Raymond Limited lifestyle business which is having the debt. We will demerge the lifestyle business from Raymond Limited into RCCL along with the assets and liabilities as well as debt, so that the cash which is at RCCL from the sale proceeds of FMCG business can be used to repay the debt, and therefore making lifestyle business a debt-free business.
Now, SEBI has barred 5 entities, including an LIC employee, from the securities market. The market regulator impounded illegal gains worth more than 2 crore rupees made by these entities in a front-running case. In its order, SEBI stated that the LIC employee used non-public information to buy stocks and make illegal profits. Here's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. German engineering major Siemens looks to double down on India's railway sector. Speaking to CNBC-TV18, the president and CEO Roland Busch said the company will continue to bid aggressively for tenders, also adding that it wants to use India as a base for global exports.
Mobility, we recently won a 3 billion order for locomotives. That's just the start. We want to double down on that success. Healthcare too. I mean, the healthcare system is also expanding. So we are firing on all cylinders. Definitely not slow down in contrast. We want to double down on our success and really do more.
Well, that's Siemens Global CEO. Time for us to take a short break, but up next, the Solicitor General tells the Supreme Court an FIR against Wrestling Federation Chief Brij Bhushan Singh will be filed today. The court directs for protection to a minor girl who is among multiple wrestlers who accuse Singh of sexual harassment. That and more when we return. Well, the top national story that we are tracking closely, wrestlers continue to protest at Jantar Mantar against the Wrestling Federation Chief Brij Bhushan Singh. The Solicitor General telling the Supreme Court that an FIR against Singh will be filed today. The Apex Court is directed for protection to a minor girl who is among multiple women to accuse Singh of sexual harassment and ill treatment of athletes. Meanwhile, support has now started to pour in for the wrestlers, with several writing on social media, including Olympic champion Neeraj Chopra. Shivani Bazaz gets us more on this developing story from Jantar Mantar.
National level and Olympic wrestlers working out, not in a stadium or on a wrestling mat, but at a protest site, getting ready for a fight that could be long. These women wrestlers have been protesting at Delhi's Jantar Mantar, less than 3 kilometers away from the Indian Parliament, demanding action against Wrestling Federation of India Chief and BJP MP Brij Bhushan Singh over allegations of sexual misconduct. The protest began in January but was called off after assurances from Sports Minister Anurag Thakur. The wrestlers have moved the Supreme Court demanding action.
It's early morning here in Delhi's Jantar Mantar, where the wrestlers' protest has entered the 6th day. And as you can see behind me, that the wrestlers have been practicing for their upcoming games since morning. As you can see, not just the big names, including Vinesh Phogat and Sakshi Malik, but also young wrestlers here practicing for their upcoming games and practically living on the streets of Delhi. Yesterday, as we know, that IOA chief PT Usha had said that wrestlers protesting like this amounts to indiscipline. But the wrestlers here say that they're sports persons and discipline is in their blood.
Lack of support from legendary athlete like PT Usha has hurt the wrestlers.
हम कमेटी के पास 3 महीने पहले गए थे, तब तो मैडम ने फ़ोन भी नहीं उठाए और मैडम अभी हमें अनुशासनहीन बोल रहे हैं। अनुशासन, मैडम खुद एक एथलीट है, आइकन है हमारे, तो मैडम से पूछिए बिना अनुशासन के मेडल जीते जा सकते हैं। और जब आपकी एकेडमी को तोड़ा जा रहा था, जब आप ट्वीट कर रहे थे, तब अनुशासनहीनता नहीं थी, जब देश की गरिमा को कोई आँच नहीं आ रही थी। हम भी खिलाड़ी, आपके पास तो राज्यसभा से सांसद भी हैं, आप आयोग के अध्यक्ष भी हैं, उसके बावजूद आपके साथ ऐसा हो सकता है, तो हमारे पास तो कोई ताकत भी नहीं है। हमारे पास तो सभी जो देशवासी 140 करोड़ हिंदुस्तानी, उनकी सभी की जो सपोर्ट है वही हमारी ताकत है।
And it's not just women. Young and rising male wrestlers have also joined the protests, all putting their careers at risk.
हमारी जो बहन बेटियों के साथ अन्याय हुआ उनका वो चाहते हैं हम तो जी बस।
और डर लगता है आपको इससे आपके करियर पे इम्पैक्ट होगा कुछ?
अगर इसका कुछ नहीं हुआ तो हमारा तो कुछ वो ही नहीं आगे हम तो छोड़नी पड़ जाएगी जी हमको ये चीज।
तो आप कह रहे हैं कि अगर न्याय नहीं हुआ तो आप रेसलिंग छोड़ देंगे?
हाँ जी,
नहीं खेलेंगे?
ये हरियाणा की अगर नहीं हुआ ना कुछ तो हरियाणा को बिल्कुल पीछे कर देगा ये रेसलिंग को।
हमारे सीनियर इतने दुखी हो रखे हैं तो हमको तो होना ही पड़ेगा उनकी सपोर्ट देने के लिए। नहीं उनका वो नहीं होता आगे हम क्या कर पाएंगे। अन्याय नहीं होगा तो छोड़नी तो पड़ेगी। तो हरियाणा में सबसे ज़्यादा मेडल है और ये रजभूषण हरियाणा को सबसे पीछे डालता जा रहा है। ये अन्याय तो है ही। हम अपने सीनियरों का सपोर्ट देंगे जब तक ये यहाँ पर हम भी यहाँ पर ही नहीं।
The celebrated wrestlers of India forced to live on the roads of Delhi. That's the status of the wrestlers' protest here in Delhi's Jantar Mantar. The protesting wrestlers say that they're not afraid to put their careers on stake for justice. Even young wrestlers here say that if justice is not done, they'll be forced to quit wrestling. In Delhi, with video journalist Huday Patra, this is Shivani Bazaz for CNBC-TV18.
And now several sports icons have started to extend their support to the wrestlers. Archana Solanki joins us now to take us through who has come out in support. Archana, it began with Olympian Abhinav Bindra, and today we are now starting to see more support coming in.
Yes, thank you, Shireen. So, hashtag I Stand With Champions is trending on social media and is picking up momentum. But how did it all begin? Ever since India's wrestling champions resumed their protests on Sunday, that is 23rd of April, there was a conspicuous silence by the most influential voices in the country. The wrestlers kept asking for support, urging the authorities to act and register an FIR against Brijbhushan Singh. Vinesh Fogart, the World Championship medalist and one of the faces of the protest, also raised a very pertinent point, asking why top cricketers and other big names are silent. She even cited the example of Black Lives Matter, when almost all the famous names of the country posted messages in solidarity. But amidst the obvious silence, there are some exceptions who chose to speak up. They are cricketing legend Kapil Dev, Olympian Neeraj Chopra, Abhinav Bindra, Sania Mirza, Irfan Pathan, Virendra Sehwag, Harbhajan Singh, boxing champ Nikhat Zareen, India's former hockey captain Rani Rampal, Jwala Gutta. All these people have some way or the other raised their voice. Now, Indian tennis legend Sania Mirza said that watching the female athletes protest on the streets is difficult, hoping for justice to be served as soon as possible. Harbhajan Singh was more direct in his support, and he said that it pains him to see the pride of the country in such a condition, protesting on the streets. Meanwhile, two-time world champion, boxer champion Nikhat Zareen and former Indian women's hockey team captain Rani Rampal also lent support to Vinesh Fogart, Sakshi Malik, saying that justice must be served to these women. Back to you.
Archana, many thanks for joining us. That is the latest in this matter. The Supreme Court will, of course, take up this issue again in a week's time. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. Up next is our Friday.